So the big tax question is this: how do wealthy people keep their money working for them when selling their business, real estate, or other highly appreciated assets without paying hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in tax? What if we, as business and real estate owners who have poured blood, sweat, and tears to growing our wealth, and who didn't hire expensive tax attorneys and CPAs to map out an exit strategy, knew their secrets? Instead of recreating the wheel, why can't we just model the way they deferred 30 to 50% in tax, paid off debt, funded their next business dream, and most importantly, leave a financial legacy to give to the causes we believe in most? What if their secrets weren't complicated at all, and you just need a guide who is a few steps ahead of you? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Brett Swarts, and welcome to Capital Gains Tax Solutions. Welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy is the best way to grow your wealth. I'm your host, Brett Swarts. In each episode, I'm joined by some of the best financial independents and passive income wealth advisors in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration, so together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. I'm excited about our next guest. You know, many individuals struggle with a life that not only fails them to bring them happiness, but it also puts them into debt. Our next guest believes there's a better way forward. He's actually a consultant, podcaster himself, writer, and speaker. He's the co-founder of the Figure It Out podcast and also the host of the Money Savage podcast. He's also the creator of Money Alignment Academy and the president of Financial Consulting Professionals. I was really impressed with his background as well, as he's in Investorpedia's list of top 100 financial advisors for 2019. And his real passion is helping people lead happier and more content lives. He's actually having a brand new thing launched in January. It's called strivedetox.com. It's kind of an online boot camp to help you detox your mind, your body, and your money. And you can find more and more about him at georgegrombacher.com. Please welcome George Grombacher.
Well, thanks for having me, Brett.
Well, George, I appreciate you being on the show, and thanks so much for sharing some time with us here. Would you please give our listeners a little bit about yourself, your story, and your current focus?
Yeah, for sure. And again, thanks a lot for having me. We were talking a bit offline about how I've got a 2-month-old and a 3-year-old, and the gray in my beard is really attributable to the 2-month-old. But that's a little bit about me personally. I'm a married guy, 2 kids, live in Scottsdale, Arizona. I've been in personal finance for the last 20 years. This is, I guess, my 20th year of doing it. And the real focus on the retirement planning space. How do you create retirement income? And the reason I chose to do that is because as Americans, not everybody is having a great time doing that. In fact, there's too few of us that are doing a great job saving money for retirement. And, you know, I found that a lot of the financial wellness, financial literacy that's out there, it falls short just for a variety of reasons. But I think that a more practical, easy to understand approach is what's necessary to actually help people to make a real and lasting change. And that's really what I'm working on. You rattled off a lot of things that I've been spending time on over the past couple of years. And it's all designed to try to take difficult concepts and make them easy to understand.
I love that. Yeah, clarifying financial intelligence and literacy, and making it simpler is always helpful in today's day and age with the amount of information that we're facing. So a little bit, George, before your success as an educator and as a financial advisor for 20 years, who was George growing up? And also really want to dig into what gifts were you given, and how does that help how you help others today?
Yeah, I grew up in northern Minnesota. I don't know if that necessarily means anything one way or another, but
it's cold there.
It is very cold there. So many kids played hockey growing up. And while I certainly did that, I found my niche in playing tennis. And that meant that half the year you were playing inside, and finding indoor court time in Duluth, Minnesota was not necessarily the easiest thing. So it meant really early mornings or late nights to be able to get out and practice. But fundamentally, I think that tennis taught me that very, very merit-based. If you really are single-minded and focused and do the work, you're probably going to be successful at it. And it also gave me a very, very short memory, because after a point in tennis, whether it went great for you or it went bad, the next point is right now. So you need to make sure that you're able to move past a success or a failure and get ready to take advantage of the next point. But back to that whole self-determination piece, I made the decision that I wanted to play Division I tennis. I made the decision I wanted to get a scholarship, and I made the decision I wanted to play at a small Division I school outside of a big city. And so I literally made a VHS tape of myself playing tennis and sent that along with handwritten notes to 70 different schools. And this was in 1995 or 1996, around that time. So a long time ago, before the internet, certainly, I think. At least I wasn't using the internet. And that's, I was able to find that D1 scholarship outside of a big city. I went to Valparaiso University, had a great experience there. But again, it just taught me, if there's something you want, don't wait around for somebody to give it to you. Don't wait for somebody to tap you on the shoulder. Make the opportunity. And do whatever it takes to get there. And then in college, I can point to a couple of different examples of people who did put their arm around me and said, you know what, George, I see you as someone who could be your leader in this organization, or I see you as somebody who could be successful in this area. And that has always stood out to me, of if you can give somebody a great reputation to live up to, and maybe see things in them that they don't see in themselves, that can really help people go a long way. So first and foremost, I guess one of the greatest lessons I learned and still employ today is, don't wait for somebody to give you permission. If you have something that you want to do, especially in today's world, you can learn about it, you can do the work to get there, and don't let somebody stop you. And then, if you're in a position where you have influence over people and you can help them along, well, you should be doing that. And that's if you're an employer, or if you're a dad or a big brother, whoever, you're in a mentorship. If there's an opportunity there, give people a hand up.
I love that, George. It's a great part of your story. So, Division I college athlete, but wasn't easy when you started out. You had every excuse not to play tennis early mornings, late nights, indoors, tough environment when it's very cold outside and a lot of people are playing hockey, but you loved it, you focused on it, and also learned how to bounce back just on the game of tennis, meaning your success, your failures, you have another step to move forward. I think it's a lesson that we can always be reminded of. It's not necessarily what happens, it's how quickly you can bounce back and what you can learn from it moving forward. So that's fantastic. So tell me now about what you do, and in particular, what's the most rewarding part about what you do?
When you get up in front of a room full of people, there's people are never quite sure how they're going to react to you, because is this just another financial guy who's pitching me something or wants me to buy something or whatever, or are they going to be or is this a person I can relate to? And then at the end of that meeting, having people come up to you and say, thank you so much. That was, I totally get it. This makes sense to me now. I have a clear path. Can we talk further? Because you're somebody that I think can help me get to where I want to go.
So it's the relationships, and it's breaking down those barriers of either not knowing or or skepticism, and then actually being able to relate with people, connect with people, and then of course help them out.
That's exactly right. I think that there's so much confusion surrounded when we start talking about financial services or financial advisors, financial planning, or confusing abstract concepts. Like the world you work in is incredibly complicated, and so I imagine that you would probably say the same thing, that you find it rewarding to be able to break down these very complicated, complex concepts into information that's easy for people to understand, and then actually take action on and do something about it. Because you could be the greatest, you could have the greatest information in the world, but if people weren't actually able to absorb it and then use it, well, then it's a waste of time. I'm fond of saying that I would rather be useful than be brilliant, because why would I want to do anything other than that? If I'm the smartest financial person in the world, but I don't have any impact, and that's a total waste of time.
I couldn't agree with you more, right? And simplifying, clarifying it, and then really applying it to the particular client situation and challenges and needs. And what I like to do, and I like to say, is we're kind of a broker of information, meaning we're connecting the best ideas from oftentimes the best clients that we have, and then just sharing all of those and saying, hey, this might fit for you, and this might be a good fit, but let's explore the top 1, 2, or 3 options, and then you decide what's best for you, and we'll work together as a team to help you with that. So yeah, I have a very similar approach. Will you give an example, maybe perhaps of how your service is kind of going to more of the practical or the technical part of what you do, and how it helps others create and preserve more wealth and or save in taxes?
There's certainly a lot that goes into that. I think that the first step that you have to take, and I'm reticent to talk about goal setting and values and finding your why, because there's a lot of that going on right now. But that's really where people need to start, is to clarify and crystallize what is most important to them, because I think that that's going to inform how it is that they're going to use their resources. How are you spending your time and your attention, and how are you spending your money? And if you can answer that question, if you tell me that, I'll tell you where you'll be 5 or 10 years from now. So you need to start with that. And again, we all know that, but so few of us actually do it. So making sure that you've done that work in advance of having real conversations about financial planning. So get that done first. Understand what's most important to you. Really understand what those goals are, what those values are, and do it as a family. And then that's going to inform your cash flow and what changes that you need to make, if any. And then you can talk about, here's where we're interested in going, because I know where I am, and then I can look at where I want to be, and then it's a matter of closing the gap. I think people really, when they think about financial planning, it's very, very abstract, but it's as simple as it can be, right? It's like, okay, let's talk about where you are. Let's talk about where you're interested in going. And once we've done that, then we can talk about important tools like working with trusts, like ETFs, or whatever it might be, or qualified plans or pensions, commodities, all of those things. But the first step, it's doing the important work of setting that foundation.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's in the good book, it says, where there is no vision, the people perish. And I can't think of a more practical way to make sure you have a vision and a plan for your wealth and for your income. And at the end of the day, it's a mathematical equation, right? Where are you spending your time, your energy, and your talents? How much is that producing? What are you living off of? Or how much are you saving and investing? And then, of course, where can we put it the best work to achieve those goals? So I consider you a financial advisor, because you absolutely are, but you're more than that. You're a wealth advisor for not only the person's finances, but also for contentment and more of a holistic approach, which I really appreciate. So after helping countless investors and business owners, entrepreneurs, and your clients over the years, and interviewing them on your Money Savage podcast, what is the single best practice to implement to be successful in investing and or building wealth? I know you touched on the why, but maybe something that's a little more hands-on. You would say, hey, these top 5 or 10 investors have done this to really accelerate their wealth accumulation and preservation of their wealth.
Yeah, well, I think that's a really important question, because I do think that there are through lines, and really irrelevant to if we're talking about a business owner or generational wealth, whatever it might be. What are the characteristics of people that are successful with money? And so definitely want to get into that. Just to sort of close the loop on the last question, and it kind of goes into this question as well, is really pursue truth. And when I say that, I just mean don't necessarily take somebody else's word for whether a certain strategy is right or wrong for your situation. Because just for example, if you were to Google annuity, you would get 80 trillion results, and you would get results for people who all they wanted to do was sell you in an annuity, and then you would get information about how terrible the annuities were. And an annuity, just like a trust, is neither a good thing nor is it a bad thing. It is a tool which could be perfect for your situation depending on what it is that you are trying to accomplish, or it could be absolutely terrible for your situation depending on what you're trying to accomplish. So it's not going to be easy in today's world where we have the world's lifetimes of information at our fingertips in the form of a smartphone, but I think that that's such an important thing. And I think that the majority of intelligent people probably know that, but you need to figure this out for yourself and do research and talk to smart people in order to figure out if these solutions are right for you. But to get back to answering your question, there's different stages of our financial lives. Obviously, the first stage is what I refer to as protection. So that's people who are getting started. So you need to factor in your cash flow. You need to get the right insurances. You need to pay yourself first. So start putting money away. You need to get out of debt, which is really, really obviously a key thing. You need to set up your emergency fund. And then you need to really start socking money away. So once you get there, then the second stage is accumulation. So how do we start saving money? And, rules of thumb and cliche stuff tells us we want to get to 15% of our income going to long-term savings goals. We want to have liquid money for the next 10 years. So midterm goals, we need money for short-term as well. Then once you get past that, you want to start looking at legacy planning and all that good stuff. But the third stage of our financial lives is all about decumulation, or using the money that we're saving. So how do you actually design that retirement income? And I know that certainly, I think so many of us are interested in passive income. So how do I make sure that I'm making money as I sleep? And also, how do I make sure that the money that I've saved will be there for as long as I need it? You can't have that conversation if you haven't already saved money, right? It's impossible to do financial planning if there aren't resources. But those are really the three stages that we talk a lot about.
Yeah, just to focus on legacy one, because a lot of our listeners are high net worth or ultra high net worth listeners who are really selling a highly appreciated, primary home, business, or commercial real estate, and they're looking at large capital gains tax, but more so they're looking at not only tax deferral, but they're looking for preservation of that and becoming more passive. I mean, I think the stat is now that there's about $17 trillion that will pass from one generation to the next in the next 20 years. And this is the largest wealth transfer in the history of the planet. And these are known as the baby boomers, and they're looking to get rid of the toilet trash liability and employers that they're having to manage and all of those things, and really retire and take those illiquid assets and make them hopefully in a tax deferral way, in a deferred way, liquid assets. So what are you doing to help educate the baby boomers, and what tools would you say are, hey, now that you're in the legacy play, here are one or two things you should consider that maybe they're not looking at right now?
Yeah, and I appreciate the question. And the answer to that question is that the sooner that you can start having these conversations, the better, because it takes time to actually put plans like this together, right? And tools like the strategy that you're most focused on, I think, is obviously an incredibly valuable tool in helping people to accomplish their goals. And when I say it's important to have a time horizon for this, just because strategies like making gifts out of your estate to lower your tax liability certainly take time, and looking at strategies using life insurance certainly takes time. Like anything else, it depends on client situation, but I think that it's so important to be able to take all those into consideration and have that complete plan when you're talking about deferring capital gains, and you're talking about making sure that you have money to support your current lifestyle. Those are all important considerations, and making sure that you're not tying up too much over your money in strategies where you become illiquid, because that's obviously a horrible result as well. So the liquidity, the market risk, all of those estate considerations, leaving money to kids, not leaving money to kids. And that's kind of going back to the whole thing. So important to be able to find the right resources in order to make good decisions, because it's incredibly complex. And if you don't have good guidance, then you're going to be probably not able to make decisions because you don't want to make the right, or rather you don't want to make the wrong decision.
Absolutely. No, that's great wisdom. So shifting a little bit to more of the business professional, because some of the listeners are financial advisors themselves, or commercial real estate brokers, or syndicators, operators. What would you say they're missing, if they're missing anything? Or a better way to put it, not so much what they're missing, but what is it about what you do and the folks that maybe you connect with that are kind of your outer team, either commercial real estate broker, business broker, estate planning attorney, CPA, and how do they best leverage working with you, and or how do you guys collectively educate the client base to help give referrals and really just share the information, because each one of us is a specialist in our area. So how are you best working with other professionals?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of challenging the status quo when it comes to me making an introduction to professionals that I work with, really exactly how you described it, because people have misconceptions about all these different strategies and all these different products or whatever it might be. And I think that a really great financial advisor, really great commercial real estate professional, really great tax professional, they are not simply handing off or creating an email saying, hey, Brett, meet Steve, good luck to both. It really is a matter of, let's make sure that we have a cohesive plan for what we're going to be trying to do, and I'm going to stay an active participant in this planning process, because it's my job to help not only clarify and crystallize what you want to accomplish, it's also my job to drive this process for actually getting it done. Because frankly, if we're talking about selling a business, or we're talking about making a very, very large transaction, what will stop it are the emotions. My fear of making the wrong decision, my fear of, that's really it. It's what am I going to do next? So I think that so much of the value of a professional advisor is, yes, providing great information, yes, making great relationship introductions, but then making sure that the whole thing actually gets done. Because so often I see, and people that I talk to, you get all the way to the finish line, but it actually never totally gets done, and it's the emotions that come into play.
What's the best way to accomplish not having the emotions come in the way?
Yeah, well, it's making sure that you're starting with the end in mind. Again, we talked about doing the important work, which we already talked about. But since we've already done that work, we've already talked about why it is that I am putting money into this investment, or why it is that I'm selling all of my business or a portion of it. And I already know this is what I'm going to be doing afterwards, or this is the benefit that this trust is going to give me. So when we get to the end of it, we're not going to get cold feet. We still might, but we can already then go back and revisit and say, hey, Brett, we talked about this. We talked about, here's why we decided to do this. Here's why you decided to sell the business, and what you're going to be doing after you actually, let's assume that tomorrow, once you've actually sold your business, here's your plan. So
reminding them of the goal, reminding them of the problem, the pain points, and then saying, hey, look, you're in the part where it is emotional, it's tough, it's challenging, it's new, it's a new tool or new strategy or a new relationship with a new person. But let's clarify again why you're even here, what you're trying to accomplish, and then what it looks like after we're on the other side of this. So whether you're selling a business, real estate, a new financial advisor, new tax deferral strategy, such as the Deferred Sales Trust, whatever it is, you're saying, hey, let's remember where we came from and where we're going and what it looks like after.
I mean, life is all about expectation. It's about expectation about how this relationship's going to go when we get started. Like, hey, Brett, here's what you can expect from me over the next 2 weeks. As I'm going to educate you on why this might make sense for you, once we make a decision that this is a strategy that makes sense for me and my family and my situation, here's what the implementation is going to look like, and then here's what we're going to be here's what we're going to expect after it's implemented and into the future. And you can count on me that I'm going to be there to guide you along every step of that process. Does that sound reasonable? And it's not a magic bullet that's going to eliminate emotions, but we had the conversation up front, so we can at least manage through those emotions. And if you don't do that, well, I think you're going to have a bad experience, with anything. So
that's so well said, and it comes through of why you're such a good advisor and a helpful resource for your clients. And so, shifting a little bit here, and George, and kind of wrapping it up a bit, how do you stay centered on your values? What are some some habits or some disciplines that you've implemented in your life to stay centered on your values, and then even probably even more importantly, to stay encouraged to charge forward to reach your goals?
A couple of really important things. I think that the practice of gratitude is an incredibly important and extremely valuable tool, underutilized. So every morning I think about 3 things that I am grateful for. And it could be anything. It could all be in relation to my family. It could be in relation to my ability to get up and exercise, or the fact that I live in an amazing place. So we have so much to be grateful for. We live in the best country that's ever been around, in the best time that we've ever that any human being has ever lived in. So the practice of gratitude, I practice affirmations on a daily basis, I am statements, and I say them out loud every morning. And I think that is something I've been doing over the past couple of years, and I could not encourage people to do that more. It's such a powerful thing, just to remind ourselves that, hey, this might not have been going as great as I want it to, or whatever. Life is tough. Just consistently reminding ourselves, this is who I am. This is where I'm going. This is why I'm doing these things. I think that we're all well aware of the responsibilities that we all have. But it's more a matter of, I'm making the sacrifices on a daily basis because of this future life that I'm working for. So gratitude, affirmations, those are 2 things that really help me a lot.
I love that. Yeah, the practice of gratitude and the I am statements, clarifying your vision, where you're going, what your values are, and saying those out loud. I love that. The Miracle Morning comes to mind as a book that I read about 2 years ago, and I've tried to practice a similar practice every morning of silence, of meditation, of affirmation, of reading. I read the Bible, and focusing on what the day lies ahead, visualizing the day, which have really helped stay encouraged and stay centered on my values too. So thank you for sharing that. So George, can you remind our listeners again where they can find you? And also, I want you to plug the strivedetox.com. We touched on that briefly, but really give our listeners what that's about and where they can maybe join that group.
Yeah, and I appreciate the opportunity. People could find everything that I'm working on at georgegrombacher.com. Specifically the Strive Detox. It's a Strive online 2-week boot camp, and kind of everything we've been talking about. It's easy for us to kind of fall out of whack with things. It's easy for us to fall into the trap of too much screen time, too much social media, too much fantasy football, too much gaming. It's easy for us to fall out of the routines of our exercise and our diet, and all of a sudden you wake up and you put on 5 or 10 pounds or whatever the case may be. And it's also easy for us to fall in the trap of losing track of our cash flow and spending a little bit too much. And just like meditation, our minds are going to wander, and whenever that happens, we just pull it back to center. They wander again, we pull it back to center. And with your mind, with your body, and your money, I think every once in a while, we just need to hit reset and pull things back to center. And that's really what the Strive Online Bootcamp is designed to do. Just a 2-week period where you examine on a daily basis, how you're spending your time, how you're spending your attention, and how you're spending your money. Because if you're not intentional about that, well, I tell you what, man, there are a lot of forces far greater than us in the form of marketers and the internet who are trying to take those things. So it's so important to be intentional about it. That's the reason I created it, and it's strivedetox.com.
George, I want to thank you again for being on the show, and I want to thank our listeners for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. As always, we believe that most high net worth individuals and those who help them struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Hopefully, you've had a chance to learn a little bit from George and the approach to building wealth, to accumulating wealth, and to leaving a legacy in a way that's going to bring you contentment, and also clarifying your vision for moving forward so you can have more wealth to give and to save and to live off of. And as always, we believe not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy is the best way to grow your wealth. Until next time, go make it a great day.
You have just listened to another information-packed episode of Capital Gains Tax Solutions with Brett Swarts. We hope you enjoyed today's show and found it helpful. Visit capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to access the show notes and to access more resources. Don't forget to leave a review and join us again next time.